Hi, this is Zeke Listenbee, and I'm here at the New Albany High School where I graduated back in 1998. And I'm here to take you on a journey of a couple of things that I remember. So let's start in here in the band hall, which is actually the old band hall. It's not the new one, but it's the old one. This is what I kind of remember. So let's start in here. I have some of the greatest memories in life being in here. I started in here as a freshman in the fall of 1994. And I can remember coming in this room, and this room was so huge to me coming from the junior high band hall. And I didn't realize all the great things I was going to experience while I was in here. And like I said, it's the chorus room now, but when I was here, I can just remember all the awards being on the wall all the way around. And it's a real interesting place to be because I remember being in here for all of the sectionals, all the marching band rehearsals. What was one of the funniest things I remember in here is that in the in the spring of, man, it must have been like 1996 or something, there was this awful smell in here, and we could not get rid of the smell. And we were trying to figure out what was happening, and all day long we couldn't figure out what the smell was. So finally, Mr. Eubanks and we walk over here to this area where the tubas were, and the smell got stronger and it got stronger and it got stronger. And finally, Mr. Eubanks picks up the tuba and he shakes it and he said, "Man, I think there's something in here." He turns it over, and there is probably a 6-inch bird that had gotten stuck in the bottom of the tuba, and it was absolutely disgusting. He turned it over and it fell on the floor. So that's one of the great memories that I have being in here in the New Albany Band Hall. I also remember how hard Mr. Eubanks would work with us, he and Mr. Cole. They really instilled in us paying attention to what was going on around the music, not just learning the notes, but learning about the, all the extra things that were going on around the music. It's really interesting how I started here and how many places I've got a chance to go just from starting in this room. I remember in, wow, must have been around 1995 or 1996, I was asked by Miss Harmon, who was the chorus director at the time. I was asked by her to help compose a piece for Bye Bye Birdie, which was the musical that we were doing. Now, I had never composed a piece of music in my life, and Mr. Eubanks could have got anybody else to do it, but somehow he and Miss Harmon decided, hey, why don't we let Zeke do it? And I'm thinking to myself, why would you let Zeke do it? He's just some 10th grader. But he trusted me to do it. So I remember sitting over here with Mr. Eubanks at the piano and doing an interview, and we're talking about, composing the piece. And so I went home with my little sheet music and I composed Bye Bye Birdie, and we played it that year, and it actually wound up being a great thing. I don't know, it almost brings me to tears to think that, I started right here doing things that would absolutely transform different aspects of my life. I never thought anything about going to Texas or going to North Carolina or standing on stages at ACDA in Minneapolis. I never thought about any of those things. I just loved coming in here, being with my friends. I had great band directors. It was a great school. It's amazing how small things can turn into big things if you'll stay faithful with them. I was always playing, just about every day I came in here, there were 2 songs that I would play. I'd always play Your Song by Elton John, and I'd play Benny and the Jets. And a lot of my friends would always gather around the door because they wanted to hear me play Benny and the Jets. So looking in here in this closet, it just brings back so much fun memories. I was talking to some friends over here, and I was telling them about one of my good friends, Mr. Andy Hall, and we started around the same time in beginner band. We did marching band together, and then coincidentally, when I went to Delta State after I was at the University of Mississippi, we ended up being roommates. He and I, Miss Mary Beth, who else was in the band? Mr. Brandon Garrett, Jamie Shorter. There were several other people. Mr. Will Coleman from George's down the street. It was about 12 of us that were in this band together. Great experience. We were just 11th and 12th graders, and we won talent shows, and we played at the country club. We just thought we were just really something big time. So we had a great time, great memories. You know, I'm looking at this picture of myself, Miss Robinson and I. Man, it's really interesting to look at that. It's a beautiful picture. I remember back, man, just being so young and just wanting to just play music and just do music. I wasn't good at anything else. Like, I had friends that were great at sports, they were great at so many other things, but music was the only thing that I really felt connected to. I can remember way back people like Miss Rita West when I was like in second grade, and she would allow me to sit down and play at the piano during music time. And man, it was just these awesome experiences, people just giving me opportunities to do things. And whether I knew what I was doing or not, they believed in me for some reason. And man, it's really heartwarming to look at this. Man, never thought it would come to something like this. This is absolutely beautiful. And people like Miss Betty King, I have story after story I can share about Miss King and I. I started with her when I was in 5th grade, and I took from her from 5th grade to 7th grade. And she was the most hilarious lady. Her and my father got along so well because my father found out that I was cheating basically during my music lessons because she was playing the music for me. And I would come home and try to remember what she was teaching me. I was standing on a stage a couple of years ago, and I could directly connect back to Betty King for the reason being that I was standing on that stage. She connected me with so many people, and she's always been like a mother to me, and so just real sweet. And Miss Robinson, wow. You know, you take a picture with someone and you never think that it's the last time you're going to see someone. And I was just walking down the hall when I was visiting about 4 years ago, and she came out of her classroom and we just talked, you know. She was actually in the same exact room that she was 20 years ago when I was here. And we just talked, and she was very encouraging. It's an honor to be here to celebrate her with this fundraiser. This Alicia Robinson Memorial Scholarship, I'm excited to be here to help celebrate and help raise money for that. You know, I knew Miss Robinson way back. When I say way back, we actually lived in the same apartment complex when I was a kid. She was a very caring lady, and she loved good music. She loved really good music. I remember that. And we actually went to church together for several years too. And to have a fundraiser to remember someone who made such an impact is a necessity in this day and age. There's so many people who don't leave an impact anymore. And if they do leave an impact, it's not positive. And her memory will live on, of course, in her daughter and in her grandkids, but also in all the students that she was connected to. It's a real blessing to be here, to be able to honor her just with some good music and, you know, bless the town of New Albany. My falling soul, he looked beyond my faults and saw my needs. I'm always asked about some of my influences, and man, I always have to talk about Sam and Bob Johnson. I met them basically when I was like 4 or 5 years old. My dad was a musician with them and would help them arrange some of their music. And those guys spent a lot of time giving me the education of music. Some of my first music education came from being at the Hut with Bob Johnson and Sam Mosley.
I'm Leanne Thompson, and I am a teacher at New Albany High School, and we are really excited about an event that we're hosting tonight at our auditorium. And it's a fundraising event for a scholarship in memory of one of our great educators who passed away a few years ago, Miss Alicia Robinson. And Alicia was one of Zeke Listenbee's teachers. I taught with her for over 20 years, and she was a very inspiring, amazing woman, a phenomenal woman in her own words. In her memory and honor, we wanted to create a scholarship to raise money for that. We invited Zeke, a proud graduate of W.P. Daniel / New Albany High School, to come back and perform for us. So I am super excited about his show tonight. It's going to be amazing. I've been so privileged to see just tiny little bits of practice and to get to listen to Zeke speak to our students and to speak to people today here at the museum, including these fine gentlemen behind me who have personal connections to Zeke, and I am going to let them talk about that.
Well, this is Mr. Lee Howell here, and actually one of the first churches I ever played at in Mississippi, New Albany rather, was Zion Chapel Baptist Church, and I was there for 7 years, and he played organ and I played piano. I was a 9th grader, and I can't tell you how much stuff I learned from working with Reverend Howell, and he's such a blessing to me. And he actually had connections with my cousin, Walter Bates, who was from Pontotoc, and it was just always an honor to work with you. And just a phenomenal. That's right, and to work with my father also, and just a phenomenal musician, an educator also, and man, a lot of the things I get a chance to do now, I can trace it back to I think that was 1995 until 2001. We worked with each other every week, so it's a true blessing to work with Reverend Howell. And then this man over here, I think I'm one of his. One of his proteges or something. I just don't play guitar, but he's such a blessing. I was telling somebody the other day that I can remember back to being 4 and 5 years old and this guy being around. And he and Bob Johnson,
right,
they took me under their wing. And I remember specifically going and watching you guys rehearse and being there for hours and watching them put songs together. Little did I know that I could walk in a record store 10 years later and find their name on approximately maybe 75% of the CDs I found. I could see Mosley and Johnson's name on the back of it as songwriters. And I guess I really didn't even know what I had around me that entire time, but such a blessing to have these guys. They let me play with them. They took care of me. My father, he allowed me to go out and travel with them. And I can say now that even as a producer, a lot of the stuff I get a chance to do now is because I watched the masters do it for a long time. So such a blessing to work with both of these gentlemen.
For me, it's a pleasure being here with Zeke and Lee Russell, because I've had a love for music all the way back in the early 60s. When Lee Russell's brother was playing piano over at the school for Miss Gibson. She was the music teacher. That was long before your
just
time.
a little bit.
But I was intrigued by the musicianship. And then to come along and listen to Lee Russell, here again, it comes again. And then all of a sudden came in contact with Zeke's father, who was one fantastic musician.
Right.
And I learned a lot from him, and I learned a lot talking to Lee Russell. Just listen to the way they put things together, the way they make the chords. And I remember when we were working with Zeke, and we were working on a piece, and Zeke had his hands like this on the keyboards. His daddy said, "Move that close." And I'm listening. I'm listening to this. This is how you make it more full. Keep it tight, keep it close together. Bob and myself, we learned how to do that when we were producing records for some of these famous people that we worked with. So by the time that we presented the music to them, it sounded like a record should sound. And most of the arrangement, they didn't do anything but embellish what we had already done.
That's right.
So I'm proud to be here with Zeke and Lee Russell. Lee Russell has been overseas playing gospel music. You've been over there too, haven't you, Zeke? And I've been overseas playing blues and rhythm and blues.
That's right.
All from here in New Albany, Mississippi. And I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of these gentlemen. And Miss Leanne over there too. And Jill.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
you learned from Zeke's dad, and then you gave back to Zeke some of the things.
Yeah, it really is a huge circle. It's
really
a real
is.
huge circle. And I guess like the two other pieces that are missing will be my father and Bob Johnson to kind of
Absolutely.
make the complete circle. But
That is true.
and you're a real blessing, Leanne. Thank you so much for your, because a lot of times with history, if history doesn't involve someone else, they'll just kind of skip over it. They'll act like it never happened.
Right.
But there's a lot of history in this town that really has changed the world that I don't think people realize. You know, it wasn't all in New York and it wasn't all in Chicago. I mean, it was right here in a town of, almost 20,000 people, that began right here. So that has affected the world, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I don't know if I saw someone showed me today in one of my earlier meetings that you were up for a Stella Award.
I'm up for Stellar Award this year, and then I was up for 2 Grammys last year.
Fantastic.
So, but it's just hanging out with guys like this. I mean, this is exactly where it comes back to. I mean, I didn't get here by myself. It was people, and one of the other beautiful things I always like to try to share, I was around people who didn't try to hog the light themselves. They said, won't you go up there and won't you do that? Won't you get up there and try? Knowing good and ready, I probably wasn't ready for it. But they trusted that I was going to try to do a good job. And so, I didn't get here by myself. People gave me opportunities when they could have took it themselves.
Right.
But they gave me the opportunity to do things. So that's very meaningful to me.
They really took a lot of time to teach me how music was supposed to be put together. They weren't just blues men. I think some people, they restrict them down to just their talent, but these guys were educators. They took time to teach me how a band is supposed to work together, how you create music that makes people move. How do you create music that makes people feel what's going on? And their music went far beyond anything in New Albany. I think I watched a couple of weeks ago, I watched a comedian on TV. They were singing one of Sam and Bob's songs. And I was like, my God, New Albany is just on the map everywhere. It's because of people like Sam and Bob. I still remember the last conversation I had with Bob Johnson before he passed away. I was standing in his driveway and he gave me a keyboard and a amplifier. And we stood and we talked, and man, he was really encouraging me. It was like my freshman year in college, and he was encouraging me, and hey man, stick with it. You're gonna enjoy college, learn everything you can. And I think about 2 weeks later, he was gone. So I have great memories of those guys. Man, they used to, when I was trying to learn how to write horn charts, they used to let me have their Malaco horn charts and let me study them for weeks at a time, which was a complete gold mine. And man, great memories of those guys. So when I was in 11th grade, I decided that I wanted to be a band director. So I told Mr. Eubanks, hey man, I think this is what I want to do. And he was very encouraging about that. And then I decided that I was going to go to the University of Mississippi. So I went there, studied, had a phenomenal time while I was there. Then I decided I want to go to Delta State University, and I did a little bit more studying as far as choral conducting is concerned. And then while I was there, I began to not want to be a band director anymore. I had done all this studying, had done all these things. I still loved music. I still loved the idea of teaching music, but I just didn't want to be a teacher anymore. I ended up going into full-time ministry. It's just something that never crossed my mind. But when I got in there and I started becoming a worship pastor, I said, man, this really fits. I think this is really what I was called to do. And I used to think I was a complete failure because I didn't get a chance to do all the stuff I wanted to do as far as like teaching in a classroom. But I got a chance to use every aspect of what I learned in school to be able to use that in church with the people that come there every week. So I ended up moving to North Carolina and ended up becoming a worship pastor. And I have been a worship pastor now for 13 years. I think being a worship pastor allows me to be able to use every aspect of what I learned in school, but just in a like it's in a Christian environment, in a church environment. I still get a chance to work with bands. I still get a chance to compose. We have like a 30-piece orchestra at our church, and it's around 60 members when you add the students in there. I still get a chance to teach choir. I still get a chance to do all these things. I just do it in a church. It's encouraging now to be able to look back and go, none of the things I learned was wasted. I got a chance to use every bit of what God allowed me to experience, just using in church. That was the only difference. I'm very fulfilled in what I do. I love to be able to help people figure out what they're doing, how they're going to do it, and encourage them during their times that they're down. It's a huge blessing to know that God does not fail. He uses everything to be able to help us to be exactly what he wants us to be, to go where he wants us to go, and to do what he wants us to do. I consider it a huge blessing to be able to have started here in New Albany, Mississippi, which is still my home. I still feel at home every time I come back here. To be able to start here and to be able to take what I learned in New Albany, Mississippi, and take it to the rest of the world.
How marvelous that grace that caught my falling soul. He looked beyond my faults and saw my needs over and over again. He looked beyond my faults and saw my needs. I wrote a song to kind of go along with that. It talks about how God's grace has covered me over and over and over and over. How many know that God is not just a God of second chances? I blew my second chance about 20 years ago. Anybody else in here? God is a God of this enormous amount of chances. So I wrote the song that says, Over. Was greater. Greater than my sin. Was over. Yes, it was. Over. He did it again. Over. Oh. I don't know where to start. Don't know where to begin. When I couldn't get it together. Some days when the dark clouds rain with pain, yet I'm still